And we're going to start in chapter 8. This is going to be a big box series because I'm taking my time. Now, I tell you this every week because it may be the first time that you've ever, this be the, maybe the first CD you've listened to. This is not a verse by verse, line by line Bible study. It's trying to get you to see the big picture of the good news about Jesus through this guy called John, and not John the Baptist. He got killed. Jesus' cousin, John, the original Baptist that actually baptized Jesus, went to prison, and they finally drug him out and cut his head off. So that's not who wrote this. This is a guy called the Beloved. And he's the only one of the disciples of Jesus who was not martyred, who was not murdered, who was not killed. He's the only one that lived to be old and died of old age. And he pastored the church in Ephesus. I'm trying to always get you caught up in the flow of what this whole series is about. So, turn to chapter 8. And if you've never heard this, these manuscripts, these original texts, were not written by chapter and verse. Okay? When he wrote this, he didn't break it down. I'm wearing out another Bible. When he wrote this, he didn't write it in chapters and verse. And so to get the flow of what's being said here, you'd have to back up and kind of read this as a whole. See, if we started in chapter 8 with verse 1, the first word is but. But Jesus. But what? You kind of got to get the flow. He had been going through a bunch of stuff at the temple, and it caused a division. So let's back up one verse to 7:53, the last verse in chapter 7, and we'll keep reading. And everyone went to his home but Jesus. Makes more sense than
yes.
Jesus, everybody left the temple except Jesus. But Jesus, he went to the Mount of Olives, which was his, what I call, prayer closet. He spent a lot of time there praying. He went to the Mount of Olives, but early in the morning, the next morning, he came again to the temple. He went back again. And once again, all the people, good and bad, positive and negative, all of them were coming to him, and he sat down and he began to teach them. That's the flow of what we've seen in several chapters. He would get up and go to the temple, the church, if you want to call it that, the religious facility, and he would go in there, and he didn't stand at the pulpit. He wasn't an angry preacher, finger pointing and going to go to hell preacher. It says he would go in there and he would sit down with the people and teach them. He began to teach. And look, that's what he's doing. And the scribes, that's the guys who record. The scribes are the guys who would take notes, the secretaries, the ones who were keeping a written record of what was going on there. Okay. They were all part of the Jewish religious organization. But the scribes and the Pharisees, or the preachers, they brought a woman caught in adultery, and they set her down in the midst, in the middle. Now, well, one more version. And they said to him, to Jesus, "Teacher." How interesting that they actually did call him teacher. You know what that was in Greek? Rabbi. Rabbi, this woman, she's been caught in adultery, in the very act. Now, who was this woman? You have several different options that you could choose here. She could have been married and having an affair with somebody. She could have been married and having an affair with one of the guys from church, one of the Pharisees. And they caught them and just brought her and let him off the hook. That would be an option. Could be somebody else. Now, have you ever watched the Passion of Christ movie, the Mel Gibson movie? I don't know if you ever noticed this. There's one little scene where it shows in John chapter 8, it's a picture of John chapter 8 here, where Pharisees, religious guys, wearing all the robes and everything, they had rocks in their hands to kill this woman. And they threw down the rocks. We'll explain that in a minute and leave. And it shows her that Jesus helps her up. And you get a really good look at her face. You get a real good look at her. And then it goes to another scene where she, at the cross, is holding Jesus' mother, Mary, and her name is Mary too. There's a real good implication that this woman that got brought in the temple, threw down in front of Jesus, caught in adultery, was actually Mary Magdalene, who was a professional prostitute. She could have just got busted in her business that morning and brought before Jesus. I mean, if this was Mary Magdalene, then they basically knew where we could go to the corner and catch one this morning. I mean, we know where we can go get one and bring him here to try Jesus, to test him. But you know that what else it says about Mary Magdalene? Is Jesus, in another story, he cast like 7 demons out of this woman, and she became a disciple, basically. She became a real follower of him all the way to the cross. So, am I adamantly saying that's who it was? No, I'm saying that's an option. It doesn't really specify who this person is. But there's a real good possibility to me that this woman that they bring in, say here she is, she's busted, turned out to be Mary Magdalene. I didn't mean to digress there for a moment.